Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a really big question, one that a lot of us think about. Why do we get fat? And we're going to do it by looking at the work of Gary Taubes, whose book basically challenges everything we've been told about weight gain.
You know the drill, right? The advice we hear everywhere is so simple. Just eat less and move more. We've all heard it a million times. But if it's really that easy, why do obesity rates just keep climbing? Well, Gary Taubes comes along and says, what if that whole idea is just plain wrong?
All right, so Taubes kicks things off with a real head-scratcher. He presents this puzzle made up of historical moments that, well, they just don't fit the official story. Get ready, because this is where your assumptions start getting challenged. I mean, the common belief is that we get fat because we're surrounded by excess, right? Too much food, too little activity. But what if that's not really the core of the issue? Let's look at a few moments from history that tell a completely different and kind of surprising story.
So you see this pattern emerging all over the place. Throughout the 20th century, researchers kept bumping into this paradox: obesity showing up in populations that were poor, working incredibly hard, sometimes even malnourished. So how is that possible? I mean, if getting fat is just about eating too much and being lazy, this makes absolutely no sense.
And that brings us to this quote from Taubes. It completely flips the script. It suggests that maybe, just maybe, this whole toxic environment idea, it's missing something really important. There has to be something else at play here. Okay, so if the official story is starting to look a little shaky, let's pick apart that first piece of advice we always get. Just eat less. I mean, it's simple logic, isn't it? If overeating makes us fat, then, well, undereating should make us thin, right? So back in the 90s, the National Institutes of Health decided to put this to the test. They launched this massive study, the Women's Health Initiative, to see if a low-fat diet was the magic bullet. And when I say massive, I mean it. We're talking a billion-dollar study with nearly 50,000 women. This was a huge deal.
So let's get into the nitty-gritty. The women in one group were told to eat a low-fat diet. And what happened? Well, on average, they ended up eating 360 fewer calories every single day. That is a pretty serious and consistent calorie deficit day in and day out.
And here is the absolute kicker. After 8 years of doing this, of consistently eating less, the average weight loss was just 2 pounds. 2. And even crazier, their waist measurements actually went up. I mean, come on, something here just does not add up.
And this is the incredible contradiction that Taubes highlights. Even the official medical textbooks admit that these kinds of diets have poor results that don't last. So the big question is, why in the world is this still the #1 piece of advice we give people?
All right, so if the eat less strategy is, let's say, not exactly the home run we were promised, what about the other half of that famous equation? What about just exercising more? And this, right here, just lays out the central paradox so perfectly, doesn't it? The two things you're told to do to lose weight, eat less, exercise more, are the exact same two things you would do if you wanted to get ravenously hungry. It feels like you're being set up to fail, like you're fighting your own biology. I mean, think about it. We've had a fitness explosion since the 70s. Gyms on every corner, jogging, aerobics, you name it. You'd think we'd be getting thinner as a society, but nope. The exact opposite has happened. And Taubes points out the evidence that exercise by itself actually helps with weight loss is surprisingly weak. In fact, it might just be making things worse by jacking up our hunger. So, if eat less, move more is basically a dead end, where do we go from here? Well, it's time to bring in a completely new suspect. Let's talk about hormones.
This is where Taubes really flips the conversation. He says we've been asking the wrong question all along. It's not a simple physics problem of calories in, calories out like a bank account. It's a biology problem. The real question is, what is telling our fat cells to hoard all that energy and store it as fat?
And this leads to the carbohydrate-insulin connection. Here's how it's supposed to work. You eat carbs and sugars that are easy to digest. That makes your pancreas pump out a hormone called insulin. And what does insulin do? It's like a traffic cop. It tells your fat cells to pull energy out of your bloodstream and lock it away as fat. So now with that energy locked away, there's less available to fuel your body, which in turn makes you feel hungry and tired. See the cycle?
Yeah, this quote from a former Harvard professor, George K. Hill, really just nails it. Carbohydrate is driving insulin is driving fat. It puts the whole idea in a nutshell.
It's a chain reaction in your body, a biological process. It's not about being weak-willed. Now, if this hypothesis is true, it turns everything we thought we knew completely upside down. It's a massive shift in how we think about this. And there's this really elegant animal study that makes it crystal clear.
Okay, get ready for a bit of a mind bender. We always assume we get fat because we overeat. But what if that's backwards? What if we overeat because our bodies are already busy storing fat? It's a wild thought, but an experiment with lab rats helps to illustrate it.
So, in this experiment, scientists basically tweaked the rats' hormones, and as soon as they did, the rats' fat tissue started acting like a sponge, just soaking up and storing calories like crazy. Their bodies were basically commanded to get fat, but the big question was, okay, what did the rats do?
And this is the bombshell result. If the rats could eat whatever they wanted, they ate a ton and got fat. If the scientists restricted their food, the rats just became super lethargic, and they still got just as fat. So their overeating and inactivity, it wasn't the cause of getting fat, it was the consequence of a body that was already on a mission to store fat. So what Taubes is saying is that gluttony and sloth aren't the sin, they're the symptom. The biological command to get fatter comes first. That command traps energy in your fat cells so there's less fuel for everything else. And your body's response? It makes you hungry so you'll bring in more fuel, and it makes you tired so you'll burn less. It's just trying to compensate.
So here's the whole paradigm shift laid out. The old story, the physics model, says overeating and inactivity make you fat. It's a willpower problem. But this new hypothesis, the biology model, says the drive to accumulate fat comes first, and that causes the overeating and inactivity. It's not a character flaw, it's a hormonal problem.
And that leaves us with a really fundamental question. Is getting fat a matter of personal choice, or is it a matter of biology? This idea doesn't just give us a new potential explanation for weight gain. It fundamentally challenges how we think about food, about health, and even about personal responsibility. It asks us to look at this entire issue through a brand new lens.